This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, I have a returning guest, and I'll tell you what, I'm super excited to have him back on the show. I told you about this company back in November 30th. At that time, it was traded at 24 cents a share. Now it's got as high as 70 cents, trading around the high 60s right now. We're talking no other than GB Sciences, Inc. They trade on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol GBLX. And what they do, I really like their company. They're an innovative technology solutions company that converts the cannabis plant into medicines. That's right, medicines. They work on therapies and treatments for a variety of ailments in that category. And with us today is the CEO to bring us up to speed what he's been working on is John Poss. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Everett. I'm really pleased to be here. Good to hear your voice again.
Well, thank you, sir. You know, you put out a lot of news. You're very transparent. I love the management of your team and everything. Recently, you guys have been looking into this company called Nevada Pure, possibly an acquisition. Where are we at in the process of that?
We're actually performing due diligence. The bidding process for Nevada Pure was a little bit strange. The sale of the company was mandated by arbitration. There had been 12 shareholders that had been fighting with each other and in arbitration for 2 years. And finally, the arbitrator threw up his hands and said, you got to sell it and split the money. So that was the context in which we came into this. We were given very limited information on which to make our bid, but we bid $28 million plus assumption of $5 million in liabilities, and they chose us. We signed a letter of intent, and now only now are we doing the due diligence. So the letter of intent is subject to a 30-day due diligence period that ends April 26th. And we're digging in and trying to understand the company better because essentially we bid based on very limited information, as all bidders bid based on limited information. So we're finding out some good things, finding out some few, I'll say, troubling things. The problem is that but we'll make our decision on the 26th as to whether or not to move forward with this deal. In Las Vegas, licenses, you can't buy a license as an asset. Usually in a purchase, you want to go in and buy the assets of the acquired entity. That way you distance yourself from any residual liabilities or problems that may be in the company. But in Nevada, you are required to buy the LLC and assume all its liabilities. Well, that's problematic in an acquisition scenario because you don't know what's out there that you don't know. For example, we could buy the company and think, yeah, this is clean, and find out a month later somebody's suing us because an employee ran over somebody in a car 2 months before and nobody knew about it. And so this makes the due diligence particularly more important. Understand and get releases from all the potential people that could have represent a trailing liability, et cetera. So Nevada, I understand why the Department of Taxation did this. They don't want people running up a bunch of debts and then selling the licenses and leaving all the creditors hanging.
Right.
And so it's sensible, but it makes the acquisitions more difficult to really get comfortable. So we're okay. We're about midway through the due diligence process. We know a lot more about the company than when we bid. We're still optimistic that we're going to move forward. But ultimately, my judgment has to be, do I want to seize this opportunity, or am I grabbing hold of a tar baby I'll never turn loose of because of trailing liabilities? So that's the decision-making process that we're going through with Nevada Pure.
I was looking back on your 10Qs and your 8Ks. Revenues have really ramped up here in 2017. Now we're in 2018. My question to you, how is the Tico expansion, how's that come along, and how's that going to help the balance sheet?
Everyone has been pounded on me about, why haven't you expanded Tico? Why haven't you expanded Tico? Why didn't you do that sooner? Well, people don't realize, if they read our 8Ks and 10Ks carefully, that until recently there was a royalty payable to Pacific Leaf who lent the company money in the early days before I was around, and and so that was, the royalty was 16%, which was a killer.
Right.
But fortunately, the royalty agreement had in it that if we weren't making money, cash flow positive, we didn't have to pay the royalty. Okay. And so what I did, because I thought that royalty was onerous and I wanted to get rid of it and negotiate a settlement to it, is I built 180 lights, which brought us just about to break even on the facility. Thus, no royalty was payable. And so, and I went to the Pacific Leaf folks and I said, I'm not going to expand until you let me buy out that royalty on a reasonable basis. I'll just sit here with Tico knocking out 140 pounds, 150 pounds of cannabis a month until we settle this issue. Because if I expand it, I'll end up paying you all of the,
right,
all of the juice. And that doesn't make any sense for my shareholders. So it took me a year and a half to negotiate a settlement. And we settled it for, I think, 1 million shares and 2.5 million cash and 1 million shares. Well, the net present value of that royalty was over between 15 and 20 million. So I got us $15 to $20 million in value for $2.5 million and 1 million shares, and that was a great deal. But so now that we've done that deal, I can go rapidly to expand it, and that's what we're doing. So it's probably going to take us another 6 months to get it all cranked up, but the fact of the matter is I just couldn't expand until I got rid of that onerous royalty. I got rid of it, and now we're ready to go. And we've got the permits in, all the building permits are in, et cetera, and we're going to be able to start construction probably in about 6 weeks.
That's awesome. Good for you. No, you did what any good businessman would do, and you looked out for your shareholders and for yourself. I've got some questions on production with CureCan Cannabis Solutions. You put out a press release in February with RHW also. I wanted to know where we're at in the process of that.
Okay, Cure, the transition from health and human behavior, health and human sciences or whatever, over to taxation caused some delays in the approval processes throughout the industry in Vegas. We finally got all the approvals, all the inspections, and we have our actual issued license, and we got it about a month ago. And Cura is just ramping up, the kitchen is just ramping up, and the extraction is just ramping up. So we'll see impact on our revenues from both of those certainly this quarter, and it'll take Cura a while, I think, to get going to full speed, but it should represent we'll call it $150,000 to $300,000 an increase in our monthly revenues, and that's basically all profit because it's pursuant to a royalty arrangement. So that's where it is. They're working right now, extracting and getting their products into market.
GB Sciences is the company that we're highlighting today here on Stock Day. I still think they're grossly undervalued, around the high 60 cents, 70 cents. Again, I brought you this company back in November 30th of 2017. What is that, 24 cents? They trade on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol GBLX. You've been listening to the CEO of the company, John Poss. John, as I said earlier, you guys are looking to convert the plant into medicines. You put out a press release about the Parkinson patent study. Where are we at in the process of that?
Well, we're preparing the application for an exploratory IND, which we should file in the next month or two. And then you enter a period of negotiations with the FDA. But we believe we have all the pieces in place to start those trials in December. But that depends on, that's for Parkinson's, but depends on a couple of things. Number one, it depends on us being able to get the IND filings and negotiate a successful IND with the FDA. We're optimistic about that. We've already done some discussions with that. We have certainly a very fine FDA counsel that's helping us with it. The second component, we issued a press release yesterday about the minor cannabinoids. It's really a tragedy, and it's a function of our federal regulation, we could produce all of this medicine right here in our facility, all of the components we need to make the parts of the compound. We have the strains, we have the right terpenes, the right cannabinoids to do it. But the FDA won't let us, because the FDA says you can only get cannabinoids for a trial from cannabis for a trial from the sole source in the United States, and that's Ole Miss. And Ole Miss is an awful source, and in fact, it's tragically awful. And so we are going to Europe, and we're right now we're negotiating with an organization in Spain to provide us all the cannabinoids and terpenes, and it's oddly enough, the FDA will allow you to import these ingredients or the medicine from a country that has a framework for approving it, et cetera, but they won't let you won't let you do it with your own assets here. So that may or may not add a month or two to our timeline. We know they're out there. We've already talked to a number of people. Everything's there. We're just negotiating the best terms as possible to get these ingredients. So those are the two things that will control the pacing. We're pretty good I think we're set on the patients and recruitment. We're set on the principal investigator from Cleveland Clinic here in Vegas. Everything's go. We just need to get the IND issued and get all those cannabinoids and terpenes imported from overseas back to the U.S.
Well, John, you said a lot today. You said it all on my show, talked about the Nevada Pure acquisition. That would bring about $16 million to your bottom line and everything. In closing, is there anything that we didn't get a chance to touch upon that you would like to illustrate to my listeners?
No, I just think everything's awesome, and we're you mentioned at the first of the show that we're all about getting medicine to patients, and that's absolutely true. That is our single-minded focus. But the fact of the matter is, because of the way we grow, because of our philosophy and the science, we produce very good consumer products, very high quality. And it's the sale of those consumer products that gives us the revenue now and is going to help finance our science. And so, yes, we're all about medicine, but we're all about consumers and building brands as well.
John, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I wish you nothing but continued success. Hopefully you'll come back on in about 40 or 50 days and give us an update.
Always happy to visit with you, Everett. Pleasure.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.